So thank you for coming tonight. We're going to start with a prayer that I stole from the Church of England. So here it is. Prayer for tech volunteers and safety. Creator God, we thank you for the gifts and talents you have given to our tech volunteers who serve faithfully behind the scenes, enabling our worship and connection. We pray for their safety as they manage equipment systems, protecting them from harm and ensuring all technology runs smoothly and without distraction. Bless them with wisdom, clarity, and skill as they troubleshoot, set up, and operate sound, lighting, and streaming equipment. May their dedication bring glory to your name and build up your church. Grant them patience when things don't work as well as planned and renewed energy in service. We ask for the blessing on them and their parishes. Help them to balance their service with rest and remind us all that our worth is found in you and not in the technology or good works alone. May we all work to foster deeper engagement with your word and a stronger sense of community. Bless, guide, and keep us safe in your loving hands. Through Jesus' name, amen.
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 Okay. Come on, you can go now. Okay, I don't know. I've got the writing tool, so I apologize. If you imagine.
There you go. Oh, now you're still there.
No, it hasn't gone forward. Someone do this, co-host. Can you move it?
Is that a stylus?
It's just, yeah, no, it's from down below.
Yeah, I know. There we go.
There. Okay.
Okay, I got rid of the stylus. Thanks for that,
There you
David.
go.
As we gather, we acknowledge that the area we know as the Diocese of Toronto is also the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat. This land is also the subject of the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, an agreement between the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe to share and care peacefully for the resources around the Great Lakes. We give thanks for the stewardship of this land by Indigenous people and the continuing presence here of First Nations, Métis, Inuit from across Turtle Island. We acknowledge the displacement of First Nations people to reserves by a series of treaties, the harm caused by colonialism, and the role our church has played in it. We acknowledge that we have failed to live up to the treaties, and we commit ourselves to seeking a new and honorable relationship with the First Nations of this land. And I will pass it over to David.
David, thank you. Thank you. So let's quickly go over our agenda for tonight. I'll introduce our panel, and then I'm going to pass it off to Rebecca. And we're going to have a podcast-style conversation, a discussion about our topic tonight, which is legal do's and don'ts of online ministry. Welcome to our first Shop Talk for 2026. And Shop Talk is a session where we get together from all of the churches and the parishes of the diocese that live stream and use online ministry to talk about non-theological aspects of live streaming and so forth. And so tonight our topic is some of the legal do's and don'ts. Specifically around privacy concerns, around copyright concerns, and also we have lots of questions around archiving our different broadcasts. So I'd like to introduce our panel. We have a panel of experts in the field. And first off, we have Laura Davison. And Laura has specialized in privacy since 2004. Her experience includes consulting as well as executive responsibility for privacy for Deloitte, for eHealth Ontario, for the internationally renowned Institute for Clinical Evaluative Sciences. Laura has actively supported development of the privacy profession in Canada, serving on a variety of committees and boards, most notably the committee struck by the International Association of Privacy Professionals in 2006 to develop and launch its designation for Canadian privacy professionals. Laura is an active member of Christchurch Deer Park. So welcome, Laura, tonight. And our next panelist is Claire Wliton, who is our archivist and privacy officer here at the Diocese of Toronto since March of 2019. Previously was archives assistant before that. In this role, she provides guidance to diocesan departments and parishes around privacy concerns. This includes access to records, use of contact information, and sharing of photographs of individuals in newsletters, websites, or on social media. She holds a Master of Library and Information Science from Western University. Our last guest and panelist this evening is Sarah McDougall, who is also an assistant at the Diocese of Toronto in the Archives Department. In this role, she balances a desire to provide access to archival records with the legal requirements of privacy and copyright. She holds a Master of Information, Archives and Records Management, and a Master of Museum Studies from the University of Toronto. So welcome to our panelists. We're going to have a great discussion tonight around a lot of things that are probably always in the back of our mind, but we need to bring out into the forefront and just create awareness around them. So I'm going to pass it off to our own Rebecca Jones to start off the discussion.
Terrific.
Rebecca, over to you.
Thank you. So just before I start, I just want to repeat, I hope everybody's found the chat button and you use the chat. Let us know where you're from. And of course, Dave is going to be watching, so is Elizabeth, for your questions. You don't have to wait till the end to put questions in. Dave's absolutely right. This is more of a podcasting. And because this is a wonderful number, it's also small enough that we can have a discussion. So whereas in most meetings, they say immediately make sure you unmute, I'm going to ask you that unless there's a dog barking, unless you have a coughing fit, something happens, please, feel free to be unmuted, because that way, if you do have something you want to ask, you can immediately do that. That's okay. It's all right. And last but not least is the view, not the show, but your view of this. If you go to view, if you're on a laptop or a desktop, it's up in the right-hand corner, view, and you can click on there and make sure that you're seeing speaker. And that way when one of the panelists is speaking, hopefully not me, you can see them. Or you can just leave it on a gallery if you like, or go to multi-speaker, whatever is easy for you. But do use the technology that is here. And that, of course, is why we are here, is that there are myriad issues around live streaming, and particularly around copyright, and that we may not even realize that we don't know, and bringing these people together, and all of you, because you will all have different experiences and different expertise, and we want to be able to share that particularly at the end. We also want to make sure that when you are, I bet, how many of you, hands up here, how many of you have Googled various things that you were looking for using copyright? Of course you have. Let me tell you that most of the time, I'm a librarian, what's going to come up first is US. Our copyright laws, our privacy laws, and of course, aren't we blessed to have Laura here with her privacy expertise over the last number of years. It's going to be US, and Canada's is very different. So I'm just going to do a little throw out question to get our panelists comfortable. It's always, if any of you have done this, it doesn't matter how many times you've done it, it's still nerve-wracking to be on a new topic. So, and I will let Laura or Claire or Sarah start off. I'd like to start talking about what you each see, and you can agree with each other or disagree, as the two main legal areas that churches may not be considering in their online ministry. Whether they're Zooming, they're live streaming, they're doing both, whatever. What do you see as the two big things that they maybe haven't thought about? And Sarah, you do need to unmute. Fear
I
not.
just have it on mute unless I'm talking, just because I have a dog who is a lot. So,
Okay. Well, he's quiet right now. Would you like to start us off?
oh, okay. Sure. I guess so. I guess from my kind of viewpoint, um, the biggest thing really is, I think, knowing what is allowed to be recorded and posted online. That's something that is very thorny, and even I find it very challenging and quite nebulous. So yeah, it's I would say that's probably the biggest thing. And also I think the other thing is more of a archives kind of standpoint of what are we doing with these recordings. Are they things that you want to keep forever? Are there certain rules around that and that kind of thing?
Terrific.
Yeah.
Both excellent. Thanks, Sarah. You broke the
Very,
ice. Laura.
very
I guess now it may be that you've thought about all of these things, but
Oh,
just I'm guessing, and would say that one thing with respect to the live streaming and recordings, thoroughly considering how you're managing expectations of those who are caught. I say that in the nicest way, who are, in those recordings, and managing that, and I think the questions go to the second consideration, which is always important, and that is how to make decisions about what technology to use, and making not just a convenient choice, but to make a decision, and to be confident that you're making a responsible and appropriate choice as to what you're using and how to do that.
excellent. Thanks, Laura. Claire.
One of my main considerations that I sort of like people to think about is sort of where their information is being stored online, just in terms of whether it's in a Canada-based system or US, because if it's outside of the Canadian jurisdiction, it's it's under other privacy considerations, in particular as to what can be accessed or used for other purposes. So just a consideration to have. And then obviously, yes, as Sarah kind of mentioned, the archiving, it's a whole new thing that we're doing. And does the whole thing need to be kept forever, or just some aspects of the recording kept forever? So that's sort of something I hope to talk more about later.
You certainly will. We'll make sure of that. Just to let people know where we're going with the interview, I'm going to do a little bit of a deeper dive on some areas, and we'll start with music and lyrics, and then we'll go to the online streaming, and then the actual videoing, and then getting into some of the archiving. So let's start with what is probably pretty prevalent in most parishes that are either in this or considering getting into live streaming, which is the music and lyrics. And buying a hymnal doesn't grant reproduction rights. So what do churches really need? Claire, do you want to start us off?
Sure. So that's correct. It does not give you the right to just use that material as you see fit. So, and it's particularly important when you're doing digital distribution, because obviously other people are then aware of what you're doing. And certainly YouTube is very, very picky about making sure that you have copyright licenses when you are sharing music. So you do want to either, contact a copyright holder directly, or there are licensing companies that you can use. In the Anglican Church of Canada, actually, the national church does have some additional information about copyright on their website, and they do note that the two most commonly used licensing companies in Anglican parishes are the CCLI and One License.
Right.
And then, not all not all music is covered under licensing thing either. So you do have to check with the organization that you're licensing with that the song you want to share is actually one that they are licensed to allow you to share.
Excellent, excellent. I think it would be interesting if people are not using one of those licensing organizations, if they put in the chat what licensing organization they are using. Laura and Sarah, did you have anything you would like to add there?
For me, I just wanted to draw sorry, I have a stutter, so it's kind of challenging for me to do this.
Brilliantly. And thank you for the link, by the way.
Yeah, I just wanted to, just kind of, I share that with everyone just so that if you are kind of curious about certain things, like it's right there. But I can also send other, say that you after this want certain links, then you could, you can reach out to us, and we are always happy to kind of share things after the fact. I'm so sorry, brutal.
It's not brutal, it's beautiful. Don't you worry a thing. Okay, so why don't I move on to online streaming and podcasting, because that builds on these special licenses. So they cover the music in live stream or pre-recorded services, but they require adherence to terms to avoid infringement. So what do we need to watch for?
Read the terms very clearly.
No, Claire,
so many
really?
of us are guilty of, just clicking that we accept. We don't actually read. So, make sure that you read what the terms are so that you can avoid issues.
Okay.
The other consideration that maybe I would just put out there is there's what you intend, but then there is what, for example, if you're using YouTube, what does YouTube do with it? And do they match? Because you may intend one thing only, but you need to consider what the platform will do, whether or not you like it. And if you've chosen your platform well, you only have to really answer that question once. But
Okay.
That's a good point Laura raises, because I did actually go into the CCLI to kind of see what their terms and conditions were, and they do say that YouTube, their terms actually, trump the CCLI. So
do they not? Yeah. And we keep talking about YouTube, but I'll be interested to see if anybody's using Vimeo, which is the other big one. So we can talk about that too. One of the other things is when we're showing movies or clips of other recordings, which requires special permissions. And how do we get those permissions? Anybody?
Well, that's it. I mean, it's copyright again, right? So it really is. You're likely going to have to pay a fee for those uses, even if it's a news broadcast, something that seems very public and open and available to everybody. It is actually copyrighted by the news group. So you would need to contact the copyright holder. If you don't know who that is, the distributor is the best person to contact. So that's either the channel where it's broadcasting, or the movie production company for a movie.
Yeah, exactly. I hope that most of the people on here, or those watching afterwards, saw the flip book and the e-card that our group, the OMMWG, sent out at Christmas time. And we had wanted to use a small clip of a newscast. That's a no-no. So you're absolutely right. Oh, there, Elizabeth just put that in. And Tim, you are absolutely right that a lot of churches, some churches, forget to make a difference between streaming and playing recordings when it comes to licensing.
And if I could add, actually, having I'm not going to be speaking and don't have expertise as it relates to copyright for the purposes of this conversation, but at the beginning of my career, permissions, copyright permissions and contracts, that was actually what I did for a decade. And just for anybody who hasn't sought that kind of permission before, they often take quite a while to come through. So just to manage your expectations, that's absolutely something that you need to allow time for. If you are thinking, oh, this Sunday we'd like to do this, you probably haven't, you've almost certainly not allowed yourself enough time. So
absolutely right. Thank you. And then we have live performance exemptions. So the Copyright Act allows live religious performances and playing sound recordings for worship, but this doesn't cover copying or online sharing of the recorded music. Any comments on that? Yeah? Something you've... It's okay, we may circle back. Laura, were you going to say something?
well, just I think probably you if that's something that you want to do, then you'd need permission. And I think there probably are collective sort of agencies where you might be able to seek that. But Claire or Sarah, you would know better than, or anyone here would probably know better than I do on that. But yeah, if it doesn't allow, either don't do it or make sure you obtain permission.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Because Claire and Sarah, have you ever used the collective, the Canadian Collective, or have any experience with them?
I have not.
Okay. Maybe if anybody has, if they can put that in the chat, and we'll circle back to it. So let's talk about archiving, because before this, before we put together the questions, I hadn't even thought about it, except that I thought, you know, we should start to get rid of some of these recordings on our on our channel. So what process, and I am looking at Claire now, what process, Claire, do you recommend for archiving streams at the parish level?
Right. So this has become a more frequent question we're receiving, and we are still determining sort of a records retention policy and what recommendation to really provide on that. So this is a great forum to start to explore the benefits and sort of the cons of archiving streams. Based on the discussions and questions that come to me about it, I would probably sort of link it to be similar to service bulletins and sort of a selective retention in terms of archiving. So, you know, that's a sort of space consideration thing. So like, you know, service bulletins, they take up a ton of space, as what I imagine these live streams, they're quite long, and obviously are large files. So, and also future value, who possibly might be interested in that down the road. We certainly in the past have had people who've recorded sermons, and, you know, so we have tapes of sermons and things like that, which I would sort of suggest, if you are wanting to keep the streams, is you focus on sort of the liturgy and the sermons as the portion you want to keep. Because number one, you won't have to deal with any copyright issues related to music that might change down the road as terms of access or sharing. And the sermon is considered part of the person's work at the church, so that would be the church's copyright. I think, although Elizabeth is looking at me there, so maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Or Laura, sorry, Laura's looking at me.
No, I was seeing, it looks like I had a sort of an emoji float up my
Yes.
screen. That's what I was looking at.
from
Like,
Jen.
what is that? Sorry. I was distracted.
Yeah.
Oh, one thing I would perhaps sort of a layer that I would add to that is there is what you intend to archive, but then also understanding what the retention sort of probably automatic and any automatic retention policies that are applied by the platforms themselves. So you don't want to have a policy that in fact you're going to be violating by virtue of the platform, or making that part of your decision as to how you use or whether or which platform you use for these purposes.
That's very good. And one of the things, Laura, that you brought up in the sort of introductory answer about the issues that we probably aren't thinking about is managing people's expectations of, first of all, what's being recorded, and secondly, what's I wouldn't use the term archiving with most people. I would say how long it's going to be kept and how it's going to be kept.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. And I would say it's a key consideration as it relates to these recordings. Anybody whose activities or likeness is going to be captured, and I'd say it's important. And the recordings that the live examples of live streaming I've seen are, and it's a good thing. I've seen them very much focused on clergy and what's happening at the altar, and not on those members who are attending. And I think you don't need to manage their expectations because they're not being filmed. But for example, I'm a member of the choir. And I wasn't aware that, possibly because I haven't looked, but I think it would be important for people like me to know that not only am I being recorded for the purposes of people being able to watch the service remotely, and possibly for a period of time, but if there's going to be sort of a long-term retention, a long-term making available of those recordings on the parish website or somewhere else, that's something that you want people to be aware of. A big part of privacy is not, no surprises. And of course, giving people choice here, the choice really being, well, maybe I won't participate, not that anybody would, but managing people's expectations so that what you're doing is what they think you would be doing.
Right. Man. Excuse me. Sarah, did you want to add anything there before I go into the next question? Okay. Oh, thank you, Sarah. You did just add something. It's in the chat, everyone. And it's about the specific link to the Copyright Act with this. As I'm listening to this, I'm just, okay. Is YouTube a relatively secure platform for the broadcasting and the storing of streams? Or how long do you recommend storing our streams on YouTube? Now, as Claire said, it should be selective, and that will have to do with every parish, I'm assuming. But what are your thoughts on YouTube? And again, this is where the chat comes in really handy with those that are listening.
So I can't really speak to the security of YouTube specifically, but it does have a privacy policy and other terms and agreements that you should read. And I know that would take you about 6 months because they are pages and pages long. But you should be comfortable with your decision to use it. Obviously, it's used by a lot of people, so it is a fairly secure platform, or we would likely have heard a great deal about security issues. But that being said, their servers are located all over the world. And that means you can't be certain that your content is held on a server in Canada.
Right.
They do try to have you on a server as close to your location as possible, but that's not a guarantee. So you just need to be aware that it could be subject to other legislation beyond Canada if it's being stored somewhere else. I wouldn't recommend it for an archiving solution. I don't feel that things need to be up on YouTube for an extended period, but if you want to save it for archiving purposes, you can download it and store it both on your hard drive, and if you have cloud, an external device that you can store in a separate location, and that could include the archives. We are happy to get that digital content to be able to sort of keep something that's getting digital preservation applied to it once we sort of get that program up and running. That just sort of ensures ongoing access.
And is that something that the archives that you are actually getting more involved in, Claire, you and Sarah?
Yeah, we are working on developing a digital preservation sort of policy for the records that come to us that are digital. We do get more of that as time goes on. Certainly some of our parishes send us their church warden minutes and things like that as digital files. So we do both print and keep the digital, just because we don't yet have that digital preservation policy in place. And we want to ensure that that's accessible. So
right, that's pretty significant. Okay, I'm flipping to the last question.
Actually,
go ahead, Laura.
May I? Yeah, I'd like to add to that if I may. In general, making these kinds of decisions are, and I realize privacy is only one part of only one of the sort of issues or to be managed in relation to these recordings. But in general, one of the most, probably the most important step that any organization or measure that any organization takes to manage privacy is having a clear process. It doesn't have to be a hugely labor-intensive process, but a clear, skilled determination as to whether or not to use an application like YouTube, or a service like YouTube, or any other, having a clear set of questions that are helpful for privacy, that you ask yourself and that you document as well, so that you're really making an informed, skilled choice. And that includes a choice about how you use a service that you might have decided is the right one to use. There was a couple of really good questions. One from somebody in Whitby, and one of the sort of the observation is, in that case, thinking about what's the purpose of this, and the purpose is really to enable people who can't be there in person to watch and participate in a service. But after that, really, the purpose is really complete. And there are concerns potentially about keeping the service online for longer. Real important sort of concerns of privacy and dignity, which I think are really important to maintaining trust in the experience. So one of the potential, or one of the takeaways from this, I think, could be, and Claire, I apologize if I might be creating or suggesting work that might fall to you, but for everyone to have, you know, a sort of a set of questions and considerations and a process to guide making those decisions. And then as well, how you implement the solutions that you've chosen. I think it's and it needs to be done not just with goodwill, but with some understanding. So just as anything like diagnosing a medical issue, you know, it's not enough to be well-intentioned, but to have some understanding as well as to what are the questions that are relevant, and maybe some guided sort of set of considerations provided centrally could be, I think, really, really helpful and protective as well.
I couldn't agree more. I couldn't agree more. When I said I was going to flip to the last question, it's only because it is about out-of-country streaming platforms, and also asking if you know of any, because I don't, any good, solid Canadian streaming sources. In fact, it's even challenging to find Canadian archiving warehouses, data warehouses. Is that correct, Claire, or is that just...
I certainly had struggles finding anything really to the same reach or level as YouTube. And obviously, I think part of why people choose YouTube is the potential to reach people you might not normally reach. So yeah, there is that challenge. But at the same time, if we're looking at privacy, maybe we don't want to be trying to reach people we, you know, wouldn't normally reach. So it's a balancing act.
I see your hand, Philip. Yes,
okay,
Philip. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, go ahead.
Just before we step into that part of the world, one of the things I did today was go through my YouTube analytics, because we are going to have to prepare numbers for the parochial returns that are coming up, I think in March or April. I'm not sure when exactly.
Yes.
But it's usually my responsibility to get those statistics. Had I deleted everything except the last 2 weeks, those analytics would probably not be accurate. They would probably just show the last 2 to 4 weeks. I don't know the answer to the question. I'm not sure if anybody is routinely deleting old services, but I haven't. I've got it over a year. Go back to COVID, actually, on some of them. So, I mean, listening to this has been very valuable to me.
Yeah.
It's like, look, I've got some work to do there, but I'm also looking at, a lot of work, but I'm looking at the logistics now of how do I get statistics, and please don't ask me to do it every week. I can make it to church every week, but I'm not sure I can record statistics every week. So, I mean, it's one of those things where we have to look at what's the longevity of service. I mean, I'd be inclined to say, once you've got your parochial return, you can get rid of the last year sort of thing, just simply for the convenience of the people doing all the work, which is usually me.
Correct. Yeah, no, that's right, Philip. And it's one of the things that I hope we have time to come to, if not in the last 15 minutes of our Q&A here. But certainly, I think that this shop talk is going to spawn a lot of other shop talks and probably work. Okay, but I don't want to miss the final three questions that I have here, which are really about getting advice from Claire and Sarah and Laura, and some thoughts on best practices. So what are some best practices to advise our service attendees and congregation that services are streamed and broadcast over the internet? And do we have any specific consent forms available? Claire, Sarah?
Sarah, did you want to start off, or did you want me to?
So as for the form, I guess you can kind of talk about that a bit, Claire, but oh gosh. Now I forget exactly what you said. I'm so sorry.
I was just looking for best practices in
right.
informing
Yes, thank
people.
you.
And
yes.
also if there are readily available consent forms that we should be considering.
Great, thank you.
It's okay, Sarah.
So I think it's funny. I used to like when I graduated about 10 years ago, or whatever, I think there used to be sort of a feeling of you could get away with a lot of things that would probably fly under the radar just because things weren't as findable. You're a small church in some town in Ontario, no big deal. But I think now that there's so much AI capability, things that maybe you didn't think you would be discovered for kind of breaking the rules before, I think you're a lot more likely to be discovered these days. So I think that there used to be sort of a feeling of you can sort of like ask for forgiveness later, but I think that has become less possible as more things are checking for it constantly. So I think that's important to remember, is that yes, you are just like a church in a town in Ontario, but they have whole teams now that are just pulling all of this data constantly. So I think that's important to remember.
Right. Excellent. Yeah, Claire?
So in terms of the privacy aspect and sort of letting people know that they are potentially being recorded for sort of a live stream as well, you do want to make people aware, and that can kind of be done through something in the service bulletin every week that sort of announces it, and if you do announcements at the beginning of a service, then you can also include then that means that people who are visually impaired or hearing impaired are both able to get the information, and that just kind of covers your bases, and they can choose to not stay for the service if they don't wish to be recorded, or they can sorry, alarm just went off. Or they can, maybe if you have certain seats that don't show up in the video, you can somehow make that it aware to people who are attending the service that they can sit in those areas as well. So it is important to let people know that they may be sort of in the public beyond just who comes to the church physically.
Okay. Claire, does the diocese have anything, a template for us, for parishes to use?
Not as yet. There is a photo sort of consent form that sort of the Anglican newspaper uses for when people are providing photos for sharing in the newspaper, and that could certainly be modified fairly easily to account for video streaming type things. But it's certainly something that we could probably look to create, between your team and the archives. Yeah.
Terrific. Yeah, we'll be in touch.
If I can,
yeah, Laura,
sort of add in a little bit there. I think that there's an important. I think there are ways to minimize and to simplify that. As to a significant degree. The first, and this is privacy protective, is to sort of establish parameters for the making of the videos. where the camera's trained. Are they looking at the congregation? If they aren't looking at the congregation, or only potentially from behind, but if those people aren't being captured, then it's perfectly sufficient to have a very simple statement on the sort of the order of service. This service is being recorded. People can see the cameras. You don't have to get anybody's written consent. People certainly can leave, but it minimizes, I think, the impulse that anyone might have to feel that they need to leave because they're not really going to be captured. When you've got people doing readings, having sort of standard wording that's used just to sort of draw to the attention of the people who are giving those readings or making announcements, that, to let them, to sort of draw to their attention the fact that the service is being recorded and they will be, captured. There, it's important to, again, to manage their expectations, to be clear yourselves, and therefore clear to be able to be clear with them how those recordings are going to be used. Are they just, because I think they might expect, as I think I had sort of thought, that my participation as a member of the choir was sort of, being recorded for a very sort of finite period of time, as opposed to some sort of online archive. Now that it would be, important to sort of to spell that out in a very sort of simple way. And then people have the option, rather than you needing to, get them to consent, they have the option to not do it. Right. And I think you've got their implied consent. As much as possible in privacy, it's important to try to set things up in a way that isn't going to trip you up. You're clear, but if you say we always get a written consent signed by everyone, then if you don't get it signed by everyone, or you lose track of them, some that have been signed, you've got to, probably won't come back to bite you in a significant way, but always trying to set things up in a way that that you can be confident you can consistently do, is something I think you should always strive for.
Yeah, absolutely. And let's just focus for a few minutes on children and sort of the age of consent too, for children in these areas. Laura?
Well, any consent would have to be provided by the parent. And as much as possible, I think you would.
Until they're 16, is that correct?
I can't answer that. I'm not sure what the age would be, but again, I think to the largest extent possible, you should be striving not to be making films of children that are publicly available. Different within the sort of parish, or if you have here again, this is how you set it up. If people have to be members of the parish to be able to access a recording, although I think the objectives are to sort of grow membership and to make things more widely available. But yeah, I don't know, Claire, have you considered that? That's not something that I've specifically considered. It's just a sensitivity for sure.
For sure.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing I can think of where, you might want to, I guess, have some caution about is children's ministry, in terms of, do you have your children all come to the front so that they might be, visually seen, not just sort of the back of the head sort of thing, but, you have a circle where you're doing a reading with the children and they're all up at the front. I know when I went to church as a child, we always had children's ministry and would go up to the front of the church. So, I mean, if that's being part of it, then maybe there does need to be some sort of more formal consent for, children, because that you can manage a bit better than, I agree, everybody. But making parents aware that would be what was happening would be important.
Yeah, for sure. It is that balancing act, isn't it? Because we want to show that we actually have children in the parish. Come on, everybody can laugh here. Well, some of your parishes may have lots of children, but some of our parishes do not have lots of children. So when someone under the age of 50 comes in, we we want to showcase. Yes, and so it is that balancing. There's lots in the chat going on, which is terrific. And so just before I do open up for Q&A, and I know that people have lots of questions, is there anything, Claire, Sarah, or Laura, from the beginning, right? We asked you about the two areas that we need to be more considerate of, and sensitivity. I love that term that Laura just used, sensitive to. Is there anything that we haven't talked about that you think is particularly important that you want to convey to us?
I think the most important thing is that we're still learning too. I'm going to be honest. This is still very new to me, and I don't have a huge copyright background. It's not something I've really had to worry a whole lot about. So this is a great forum for me to learn as well. I see some interesting discussion going on in the chat, so I was almost getting a little distracted from our conversation as I was reading through that. But yeah, no, it's all very interesting.
Right. And Laura, I saw you.
Yeah, I'm nodding. I'm also looking at some of the questions. I think I think this may be more a matter of managing sort of or respecting sensibilities. The sort of concern about, and I know that in our sort of preliminary discussions before this webinar, I sort of raised the question about storage in the US in particular.
Right.
There is renewed sensitivity about that point. At the same time, it may be, and this is where a sort of disciplined assessment is required, because sometimes the solution that best meets your needs presents some identified risks that you manage and sometimes accept. And in this case, it may be that the sort of conclusion is, would anyone really in the US be interested in doing anything with these YouTube videos of the service last Sunday? And maybe the answer would be, you know what, we're determined we need to find something else. And that conclusion may change over time. But the answer might be, it's something that we kind of go, but still decide it's the best solution, because the purpose is to use a solution that works well, and that the people we want to reach know how to use and are familiar with. And that's a legitimate part of the decision making. It's absolutely legitimate, but that assessment could change over time. Anyway, that's the assessment is key. So I stick with my first observation.
That's great. Thanks, Laura. And Sarah, I'm so glad that your dog joined us for a little bit there.
Yeah,
Adorable.
she's asleep right now, which is
Adorable.
amazing. And she just woke up because she saw
There
me
you go.
looking at her. Oh dear. As for things that I had to add, I think for me it's more just I used to know copyright very well. And that was when I was in school, and I graduated in 2016. And so much has changed in that time. So even when you think you know the rules, it's always good to triple check you know the rules, because they do change and things are changing so quickly that I think whatever you hear here today, it's really helpful. But the answer is almost always, it depends, or we need to look into this further because things are just changing really quickly and you don't want to be on the wrong side of things. So
Exactly. Exactly. Wow, I'm sitting here thinking, yes. Okay. So, what are your questions? Or are you just going to turn this off and go and have a cup of tea and say, "Oh no, why did we get into this?" No. No, we're into it now.
Rebecca, can I start off with a question?
You sure can, Dave.
To our three panelists, thank you very much for being with us this evening. Really informative. One question I have, we've talked about these topics, but are you aware of any church beside even the Anglican Church or other churches that have had a legal issue with privacy or copyright? Have we been sued?
Mm.
Are you aware of anything that's or anybody else listening?
Not recently, anyway.
I am aware of images that have been used on some of our publications and that kind of thing, that it turns out we didn't have the copyright and we've had to pay. So that does happen. But I'm not aware of an actual like streaming sort of issue yet.
I have one. It was at the St. James Cathedral at the funeral of Archbishop Finley. The song Hallelujah was used and live streamed,
Right.
and we were sued. A legal letter was sent that next day to say, you can't do this. And there's another church, I think, that was fined like 2,500 for use of a song as well, fairly recently, that was up on YouTube. So it has happened, actually.
Yeah. It certainly was happening during COVID. Connie.
Okay. Yes, thank you, Rebecca, for sharing, and to the panelists. Good to see you, Sarah and Claire. David took the question right out of my mouth. That was one of the things I was thinking about, because I'm a firm believer in parish ministry and throughout the diocese that we lead proactively, not reactively. And ignorance of the law is no excuse. Having said that, as a parish priest, retired, but parish priest nevertheless, the last thing on my priority list, frankly, is copyright. It's just not my priority. Preaching, teaching, pastoring, leadership, all of those things. And yet, I don't want to be operating in a vacuum of knowledge. So this is why I look to the diocese, as Sarah said and highlighted for us, the law is changing, and you can't assume that what was appropriate yesterday or adequate is applicable to the situation today. And I think that, I don't know how many clerics are on this call or on this podcast or webinar, but I think it's incumbent upon the diocese, given that this is a very important issue, and we don't want to be in a position where we're being fined for our ignorance, but to send something out, maybe that can be one of the outcomes of this webinar, a summary. And clergy don't typically read more than a page or two. So summarize the do's and don'ts in online ministry. For example, a number of churches will, in online worship, will show people coming forward to the communion rail.
Yeah.
Now at St. George's Halliburton, we did not do that. Is that something that is recommended or not? Because it's anything goes. We were offering movies for seniors, And when I got to the parish, they'd announce, oh, they'd invite everybody during the announcements to come to a movie Wednesday night. And so I said, what movie are you inviting people to? Oh, we can't tell them the title. That would be an infringement. And I thought, well, that's rather silly. I mean, you're inviting seniors to come to a movie and you can't tell them what the title of the movie is. I said, where are you getting this stuff from? So anyway, there are a lot of questions, you know, I mean, with PowerPoints, we always put the musician and, you know, any attribution to the author or to the source of the music. I would love to, well, I'm not there at the moment, but I would love to see, you know, a critique of what we're doing, a parish critique. Come out and see what, or do some ad hoc site visits and see whether certain parishes are in compliance or not. And in terms of Philip's question earlier about statistics, I don't know if this is exactly what you were referring to, but what we did on a weekly basis was record the number of online views. And we did it over the course of a week because some people don't watch the service on a Sunday, right? And so we looked from Sunday to the following Sunday, and if there were 30 online views or 70 online views, we are going to be reporting that through as part of our parochial reporting system.
Right.
All that being said, thank you for listening. But all that being said, I think it's incumbent upon the diocese to get something out like a briefing note, at least highlighting some of the key best practices or the do's and don'ts, because otherwise it's a mixed bag out there.
Yeah.
And guilty is charged.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Peter.
Yeah, I just want to point out that we actually had a situation arise a couple of years ago. I think Claire's aware of this, and I certainly had a lengthy discussion with Rob Saffrey, who was our ED at the time. But we had a link to, we have an online newsletter for Faithworks called Faith Lines, and we had a link in there to one of our ministry partners that is involved with refugee resettlement, who had in their newsletter a photograph that we used in our newsletter. And then we got threatened with a lawsuit from the United States that we settled because they offered an early settlement, and it ended up being like $500 US. But it could have gone much further. We'd never known that such a circumstance could arise. But the risk is, right, that you have to be mindful of the fact that even if you're using trusted sources, you've got to consider where they got their material from as well. And you can't take for granted that it's simply from the public domain. You have to be mindful of the fact that some of that stuff could have been picked off and not appropriately acknowledged. So it's just a question of being very careful. And this was something that we had used from a photograph from 2016 in a newsletter that we did in 2022. And eventually had to settle. So just unfortunate that something like that arose.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. Other questions? Certainly like the idea of the diocese helping us out. We do have, I just put in the chat that, you know, it is such a balancing act, because those that are on Zoom, even on YouTube, they want to see that's how we're creating community. Mm-hmm. Yes. Mm-hmm. Any other specific questions for our very knowledgeable and experienced? And I particularly love the fact that you've all said, we're all learning. And Claire, I'm thinking I'm going to be having lunch next week with the best copyright expert I know. I hadn't even thought about this, but and I will talk to them about this and see, you know, bring you into it, Claire and Sarah. Or your experiences in your parish. So what are you doing that the rest of us haven't even thought about? Dave told me about the consent form. But we don't record them. Okay. Good. Thanks, Jeff. Same. Okay, Tim. So you're not live streaming. Those that are saying you don't record, you're not live streaming. You're just Zooming. Correct. Okay. All right. There we go. Any other comments? What questions do you still have? Or do you just need to sort through what we've been talking about to determine what you still need to know? Okay. Well, we are so grateful to all of you for being here, and particularly to Claire and to Sarah. And what's your dog's name, Sarah?
Sally.
And Sally and Laura for sharing what your experiences and even your research. I know that you did research for this shop talk, and we shop talkers are just so appreciative. Thank you so much. We do have the next shop talk is February
23rd.
Thank you, Dave.
7 o'clock on a Monday night.
We do Monday nights. We keep it to an hour and 15 minutes. That's just enough time for anybody. And but I suspect, I'll be talking to Dave about this, I think we're going to circle back to this, maybe with some drafts. And also what I'd like to be able to do, if I have your permission, please, meaning you can put in the chat, don't contact me, Rebecca. I would like to be able to contact those of you on here with a little questionnaire, not just about this, but really about what you are doing and what after tonight you suddenly start to think, oh my gosh. I said gosh, Peter. Oh my gosh. Gee golly whiz. We need to be looking at this.
And I do just want to bring attention, Sarah's just posted in the comments that the Presbyterian Church and United Church have quite extensive copyright related guidebooks on their websites.
They do.
The Presbyterian Church has adapted what the United Church did.
Right.
So those might be a good place to start in our conversations.
Terrific, terrific. Isn't that interesting? It was the Presbyterian Church, too, that led with the online donations and
That's
their
right.
generosity. Mm-hmm. So very interesting. We need to be sharing much more across the faith communities what we're learning. This is not just unique to the Anglicans. So thank you so much, everybody. Drive carefully. Be careful going out into the parking lot. And we'll see you on February 23rd. Dave, did you have anything you wanted to wrap up with?
Thank you very much again to Laura, Claire, and Sarah for your sharing your knowledge tonight. Thank you.
Yeah,
We
thank
really
you.
appreciate
You
it.
did a great job. Thank you so much. We'll have you back very soon.
And thanks to everyone for coming out on a Monday night.
Yeah, great questions.
Good
Thank you all.
conversation.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, buddy.
Thank you.
Elizabeth, can you stay on for 1 second?
I will.
Dave?
And
Thanks,
Cynthia.
Philip.
Hey,
Really
Philip.
appreciate your questions.
Yes,
Take care.
thank you so much, Philip.
Okay, us. Yeah, here we are. Well, let's just turn this off.
Yeah, just turn this off.